I thought even though this is like an unofficial Chazar shir, but I thought we'd look at the Tosafot, some of the Parashat Tosafot from from Monday. I maybe people feel differently. I felt that we went through them fairly quickly in class. There's a lot going on there, a lot of terms that maybe to the two of you are not new, but maybe to some people maybe they are, but to some people they might be very new. And these Tosafot. I will say what makes these Tosafot interesting is they are already like putting this Mishnah up against all the other concepts in Issur V'Heter, right? And that's here we have let me just like I'll throw it. What's the case in the Mishnah?
I need to run and grab.
Oh yeah, you should have a Chullin with you for this time.
The case is Gid Hanashe.
Good. What about Gita Nasha? What in particular?
If you cook a yerech with Gid Hanashe still inside.
Exactly, right. This will be, this theme throughout Chullin shows up a lot of, right, in any kosher animal, there are stuff that you can't eat. And so seemingly it's actually problematic to cook the animal just, like you have like an entire animal, you can't just like roast it on a spit. Well, let's see, like roasting might be an interesting, maybe I shouldn't say that. There could be issues with cooking a whole animal. And like, clearly maybe the most commonly known one, right, is that before you cook an animal, you have to salt it, right? Salt and rinse and get rid of the blood. Um, and then, of course, you have to, right, what other things, Max, I'll just throw it to you. What other things you have to do to prepare an animal before you eat it,
Uh,
before you cook it?
Checked it correctly.
It's already chefed. It's dead animal.
It's already checked it.
Yeah.
The salting. You need to, I guess, you need to take out the Gid Hanashe, I guess is an easy one. You
Yeah.
need to do you need to do Nikor?
That's part. Nikor is part of the removing of the Gita Nashe, right?
Okay, it's all right.
Yeah.
The salting takes care of the blood.
What else is in the animal that you cannot eat?
The do you remove the chalev? Is that
You gotta remove the chalev. Yeah, yeah. I'm not sure. It's funny. I should know this. Like, this is like comes to our world where I don't know about you. Do you eat meat? Are you a meat eater? Right. The meat you get probably the meat I get at least. Like, I don't have to do any of this. Right. I go to the store or I order from Grow and Beholds or whatever it may be, and the meat comes and it's salted and the chalev is removed. And so the one thing I don't, the Gita Hashem, and the truth is most, as far as I understand, most American meat producers, kosher meat producers, don't even bother with is the filet mignon, right? Is the one that has the Gita Hashem in it or whatever. I mean, you have to remove the Gita Hashem, but they don't even like send you that piece. Like it's really hard to get in the United States because people are so nervous about it. And you also, I don't know the matanot kuna, right? You do actually owe the kuna. I don't believe you can cook those either with the animal. So it's although I'm not, so but all this stuff is done for us. But the truth is that in forget bus, we worry about basar b'chalav in our world like crazy because those are the two things completely kosher things, but they interact in our kitchen can cause all sorts of trouble. But at the end of the day, even though most of us don't see this process anymore, although throughout most of Jewish history, it was seen in the home, right? It was, you didn't get meat that had the Gita Nashe taken out, and you didn't get meat that, maybe you did the Gita Nashe taken out, but the chalev, you had to cut the chalev out, and you had to salt, and you had to salt. I mean, my grandparents, were still salting meat once, it wasn't that long ago. That was very common that you still got meat that had to be salted, or in some cases of some organs roasted in order to get that blood out, right? So actually like kosher meat is very dangerous at the end of the day in the kitchen because it has so many things in it which are not kosher. To use the term, yeah, kasher beef, right there. So, And something we forget a lot nowadays when we think about Sha'ar Isurim, we think about like pork, falls in. I don't know. You're and then this there were cases where they were in shared kitchens sometimes, like shared communal stuff, but most of the time, in a kosher home, you can make a mistake. You buy the wrong product, and you add it. I've seen that happen, but most of the time, pork isn't falling into people's dishes. But historically, what was happening a lot of the time was your chaylev didn't get properly removed, or you forgot to remove it, or whatever it may be, or you didn't salt, you forgot, like that kind of thing. Was kind of much more common, or you didn't know how to properly salt a certain thing, and then you cooked it, and you're like, oh my gosh. So, um, okay, that was all my intro. So here we have a case of Yerach Begid, right? Where you cook the thigh of the animal, and the Gid Nasheh is in there still. Okay. Um, so the Tosafot, of course, is going to have lots of problems with the language of the Mishnah, I would say, in all of these cases. Um, so let's dive in. Maybe you should. Well, let me ask. Actually, I have one more question. So, what concepts are going to come up in the Tosafot that are not covered in the Mishnah? Uh,
Hanan.
Hanan. Good. What is Hanan, Max?
That the if a drop of milk falls onto a piece of meat, that the entire piece of meat then becomes liable to exude its Issur out to other things.
Exactly, right. In other words, the meat is, I don't know, 4 eggs worth of meat, right? And you have 1 drop of milk on the meat. It's now 4 eggs of Issur, not 1 drop of milk Issur, right? Now, right, that's Rabbeinu Ephraim says that's the only case. But in the case of pretty much all the other Rishonim, right, they would say if it's a drop of chalev, right, or a drop of gid hanasheh on, in meat, that would might potentially render the entire piece as an Issur that is capable Esor to be Oser other things, right? And that's going to be the 2 very important things. Yeah, by the way, Asur, we talked, this kind of got mentioned in class, Asur and Oser. Something is forbidden. The question is Asur and can it be Oser Acherim? Can it forbid other things? And, is it that single drop of Issur that's still forbidding other things? Or does locally that entire piece that the Issur fell on now itself Oser other things? And therefore it's like a lot more forces of Issur we have to fight. To put it in Rav Landis terms. So I want to add into this, right? Rav Landis said to us, he may say this again this year. He said this is a couple of years ago. He said, what's the goal of Issur Heter? The goal is to get to 60. That's your goal. Your goal is to figure out how to get to 60. And that's sometimes literally 60 is like a metaphor for you. Like your goal is to figure out if you can. And there are cases where you just can't. There are cases where you do have to be, say it's us. So this actually happened. Rav Nahum called me it was over Pesach, but it wasn't a Pesach issue. It was a Basar v'chalav issue. And he's like, Joel, I had this thing happen in my kitchen. I just, like, is there a way I can make it work? And he's like, this is my own teacher calling me. And he did like an amazing thing, right? It's also like an amazing lesson for me of no matter, how brilliant you may be and how much knowledge of Torah you may have, when you're biased, it's always helpful to get a second opinion on things because Rav Nachum was like, he's like, I really want this to be permissible. He's like, I don't know if I can. So he's like, I can't move away, but I think it's wrong. You tell me. And in the end, we decided it wasn't good. And then he asked another rabbi too, and he agreed that yeah. So anyway, okay, good. Hanan is one thing. Hanan is one of the scariest parts of Issur Heter in the sense of like it just works completely against you if you when you hold Hanan. So but by the way, just to know, sometimes it's Hanan Chaticha Nase Nevela, sometimes it's Chaticha Atzma Nase Nevela. There's other versions of it that are out there that you'll see, just so you don't get confused, and other acronym versions of it. So, all right, what other concepts do we see in the Tosafot here?
Kidei Klipa is
Good. What's
Yep.
Kedei Klipa?
That the Issur isn't only in this case, the Gid itself, it's also the sort of thin layer around the Gid, which has been infected with the Gid's Issur.
Yeah, but and right, this is a case where we see Kadei Klipa, we'll see that Tosafot will limit it, but Kadei Klipa, like when there's a little penetration of the Issur, right? It's not a lot of penetration, but a little penetration. What's the kind of well, actually we can even what else, what other versions of there's really essentially I would say four versions of penetration in Issur Beheter.
Can you explain what klipa is referring to, like visually, like the like a outer cover?
Yes, like, well, imagine in other words, if you took a peeler, you could get rid of the klipa,
Right.
right? Or
Is it referring to the amount of Issur, or is it referring to what you do, which is to remove the klipa?
I think it's both. I think it's referring to how far did the Issur get, right?
Yeah.
Uh, it got a klipa. It's worse. You take a pea, you have a carrot that gets roasted, let's say actually we'll take the easiest case. A carrot falls into non-kosher chicken soup, right? No, that would be, sorry, other way. Yeah, yeah, a hot carrot falls into cold non-kosher chicken soup. I'm already hinting another idea here, right? Then you would have to peel the carrot, and then the carrot would be kosher.
Hmm.
Okay, again, this is cold soup on the bottom, hot carrot, carrot falls in, you peel the carrot, you're good to go. Okay. Um, so that's Kedei Klipa, right? There's the bigger version, which is Kedei Netila, right? I gave it away. What's Kedei Netila?
Yeah.
Or Netilat Makom, it's sometimes called.
Just taking off more, like a big portion of it.
Like a finger's width is essentially, yeah, exactly. This is often used like as an example. Netilat, sometimes it's called netilat makom. You may have like a knife that cuts an onion. It's a meat knife, and you want to use the onion with milk. Maybe you could take a netila off of the onion, and then you can use it for milk, right? It penetrates a netila, but not right. So. We'll see that idea, Kadena Tila. Okay. So those are the two intermediate levels, I would say. There's like Natila and there's Klipa. What other amounts of infection can happen when you have an Issur infecting a heter?
So hadacha would be just to completely wash off the
Wonderful.
lowest level, like nothing has really penetrated.
Exactly. Hadacha is completely surface level, right? That's um, and
It's probably what, just cold to cold.
exactly. That's the most simple version. Cold and wet. It's if it's dry, it may not even need that. Maybe it needs a hadacha if it's dry. So, uh, and good. And what's the highest level of penetration?
Mm. Well, I assume just that the entire thing is
Yeah, the entire thing is Issur, right? That is a level
all
of,
that.
yeah. If if my carrot falls into hot chicken's non-kosher chicken soup, the whole carrot is Issur, right? End of story. So in other words, which by the way, a carrot for cold carrot fall into hot chicken soup, you've cooked the carrot in the chicken soup. Right? That is Issur. Uh, okay. We'll get a little bit into maybe there's a timeline there and so forth, but it's Issur. There is one other thing that does show up. I don't know if we'll ever see in the Shulchan Aruch. It's in a Pirkei Tshuva, at least about it comes into fish actually. Right? He talks about how to buy fish in the marketplace, like that it's cut, like you have pre-cut fish. You know that it's kosher. Either you saw the skin, you saw the scales, or you just recognize the skin. He talks about doing like some sort of shifshuf, like scraping or rubbing the fish to rub off the oils of any non-kosher meat that would have been not non-kosher fish that would have been mixed in with it or cut with the same knife or something like that. This is something that as I do when I prepare my fish at home. You buy it from a non-kosher market. You kind of just scrape it's kind of klipa, but maybe it's a little bit less than klipa.
Can you say what do you scrape?
So I take like the edge of a knife and I just kind of run it finely along the places where the fish was cut.
I see.
So
Sounds like klipa. Just
yeah, it's not, maybe it is klipa. It's interesting. It may be a little bit less than klipa even, right?
Do you have to actually remove anything?
No, I don't think you do.
Okay.
You do end up removing some stuff, but I don't
Right,
think you have to remove anything. Yeah. So, and then you rinse it off kind of thing. He talks about it. I heard I think it was from the CRC talk about like traveling kashrut. He said that's what he does, right? I assume when he's living in Chicago, he probably just goes to the kosher fish counter. But you're traveling, you can, you can do that. You can also, I mean, you can always like request that they wash off the knife and the cutting board, or you can give them your own knife and cutting board. But so whether or not that's necessary is an interesting question. But let's just say it is a method, and it's in the Pirkei Tshuva. So. Good. Okay, so we have we've got the 4 levels of kind of penetration that show up in here. We've got Hanan. What other categories did we see or concepts? I kind of mentioned one as my examples.
There was something with Rabbeinu Ephraim's like separating from Basar V'chalav, that it's unique. Was there a
It's
way?
Hanan. Rabbeinu Ephraim thinks Hanan only existed basar b'chalav.
Right,
So
I see that.
yeah, that's it's I know it's an important thing, and that Rabbeinu Ephraim is going to sit in the background for a lot of stuff that we do. So it's important to know that Rabbeinu Ephraim. Let me ask
I add something quick about the way that it's
Yeah, of course.
Rabbeinu Ephraim as it's quoted here. So I totally get it now, and I understand the mistake that I made the other day. But when Tosafot there says Ati Shapir about they're referring to the Mishnah as Ati Shapir without our explanation.
Yeah, exactly.
Without Kedei Klipa.
Without the emendation of the Tosafot, yeah, like actually,
Okay.
we have to like either we have to make a lav dafka reading essentially of this Mishnah. But if we were Rabbeinu Ephraim, who is a Tosafist, I believe, we're like, actually, this works really well, right? It's actually it's a point for Rabbeinu Ephraim, this Mishnah.
Right. It's I guess what struck me is that it's Tosafos admitting that they are pushing beyond the bounds of the Mishnah by saying the Mishnah works fine for the opinion of this person who's totally goes against everyone else.
Yeah,
And
that's very
okay.
That's very Tosafist, right? The Tosafot often,
Okay.
the Tosafot love to punch holes in their own arguments. That's something they and often don't resolve them, right?
Okay.
Sometimes they'll just be like sat kashet. This is a little difficult, or that's the Tosafot school. The Tosafot school isn't stuck on like the only time the Tosafot school doesn't do that, and we actually see a case like is when there's actually like a live thing on the ground of what people are doing. And then they're like, well, okay, we have to figure out a way to justify this usually. But
Yeah. Okay. I don't know why it felt different to me, but great.
yeah, no, I think it's good. I think that they were like, yeah, we admit that this is, however, the thing is that there are other reasons to not read like Rabbeinu Ephraim. And so Rabbeinu Ephraim runs afoul of other sugyot. And so that's always the thing, right? It's like, it's kind of a question of where do you want to force your argument? kind of, so, um, by the way, it's also this is something that shows up so much in Tosafot, but it's live for so many of these things. On one hand, we're ultras trying to be good readers of text. At the same time, we're also trying to like deal with the reality on the ground, which is again, it's like people have a practice, and their practice didn't necessarily compare this Gemara to that Gemara. Their practice just is what their practice is, and so sometimes people like Rabbeinu Ephraim or like sometimes poskim are actually as much influenced by how well they read the text by as much as they're influenced by, well, what are people doing? And so at the end of the day, like you may have a preference for reading a text a particular way because that's the way people are operating in the world. So not every posek is like that, but the Tosafists are definitely like that. Okay, good. What other? There's like
There's a lot of terms if you want to.
Yeah, could you throw a couple more terms out there for me?
I don't know if mavutal is basically present, but it's not exactly discussed. Like the whole shishim thing is just something that we sort of see in the backdrop, if I understood correctly.
Yeah. We also, by the way, like Bitul is absolutely a thing. We also kind of it's later in the Gemara, but this whole thing of like, Gid anashesh nipashel imagidim bizman shemakiro benotentam v'in lav kulan asurim, right? And Rashi throws out uva Gemara parichli batel baruva, like let it be batel and rov. The Gemara has an answer to that. But we didn't. We have left it hanging. It though. Anybody know what the Gemara's answer to that is?
Sorry, can you say the last part again? There was a
why isn't the gid batel berov? If you cook a gid anashe with a bunch of other mutar gidim, why isn't it batel? Why do you
Is
have
it
to throw it out?
is it considered like a bria? And then it's not.
It's considered or as some people call it, bria, right? It's so the Gemara has an answer for all of these things as to why there are cases, there are exceptions to bitul, things that are not cannot have bitul, and birya is one of them. This is the reason why whole bugs are such an issue, right? Because they are not batel at the end of the day, and why everyone goes nuts about. I say they're not batel. There are a lot. There's a lot to say about that. Um, yeah, these happen to actually be cases where they're B-tool. The B-tool of the flavor can be of its right of its ta'am. It exists, but not its mamash, which is something another concept that I don't know if we saw that straight out, but right, um, um, mamasho and ta'amo are two different things potentially, right? Is the flavor of something versus the thing itself. And those have different levels of things. We'll even see the Shulchan Aruch has a very very clear, well, it's an implied but very clearly implied answer to this. But like there is actually even a question of is tam asur deoraita or not? Um, it might be tam is only derabanan. Some people, some poskim, some rishonim hold that. All right, I'll tell you, the Shulchan Aruch doesn't hold that, but nor the
Backtrack.
Torah.
Rav Landis was sort of trying to take us through if I understood correctly, the evolution of Ta'am, like as a construct, meaning is it starting as something that's completely literal and continuing into something that's conceptual and then continuing into something that's scientific or empirical.
Yes, good. And that's
So I don't know if you want to so now you're saying that even before Ta'am, we have to think about mamash as almost like the truer or the more fundamental concept.
yeah. The thing itself is asur, but the thing leaves behind a trace of itself. And the question is that trace also, if you can detect that trace, is that important? Even if you can't detect that trace, maybe it's important, right? You could imagine, right? And actually, this is kind of the way we play it out, right? Min be mino. It's a big debate, right? In the Gemara, it's not so clear. That's the big Tosafot for next week. Min be mino, there's kind of two takes on it. One is min be mino is never batel, right? End of story. And the Diaraita, and the other version is Mimino Birov, right? That you all you need is Rov if it's Mimino, because Tom doesn't come into play for Mimino, right? There's no worries about Tom because it all tastes the same, right? There's no sensation of eating Issur at that point.
I wasn't sure if that was obvious or not. Because if Ta'am is more of a concept, then it's still, or even in some other reading, like that Gid Hanashe with other Gidim, that's Min Bimino, I assume.
Yes, exactly.
So the Gid Hanashe, if whatever Gid flavor it has now given to the other Gidin, it has contributed flavor. It's not a flavor of Issur in some kind of clear way. It
Yeah.
has a Ta'am, and that still seemed to play a part.
Great. And we do end up saying Mim Bimino is Bishishim. We end up a lot the
That reason.
general view of it is that it's Derabanan at the end of the day. But yeah, because of that, I mean, well, they say they ought to because of Min Mino, but I think there is sitting behind that this idea of it does contribute something you just can't tell, right? Which, by the way, the Anom there's no B tool for Mimino, I think is playing on that same idea. It's like, yeah, you can't tell, and therefore it's always contributing, right? There's no way it's not Batel at all. Or you just at least don't ever know, and therefore you can't touch it. Um, but we will paskin at the end that it's bishishim. Everything ends up being bishishim at the end of the day. Um, so yeah, look. This also will play into. We'll see this in the when you continue the sugya. Maybe you already continue for next week, right? We'll have this whole thing of the kind of the three methods, right? Is one is the kfela arma'a, right? And one is ta'am, right? That's one is ta'am, one is kfela, and kfela and ta'am are kind of the same, just who's doing it, and the other is shishim, right? And the question is like, well, which one of those is fundamental? Is it is the idea that you should taste it and see? Maybe secondary is a non-Jew taste it and sees because you can't taste it because it's an Issur, right? As opposed to like, I if I have something I drop I have a parv soup and I drop some meat into my parv soup, and I want to know if can I serve this with milk? So is my meat batel? I can taste it. It's perfectly allowed for me to taste the meat soup. And maybe if I'm going to eat milk soon, okay, so I get my neighbor my Jewish neighbor who's not going to eat milk soon. I get them to taste it, right? Not a problem. That's perfectly, or I get, if it's truma, I accidentally drop in, I get my Kohen friend to go taste it, that kind of thing. Those are all possible categories. We'll get into a lot about, like what are the limitations and circumstances of a non-Jew tasting something. I'm hoping Rav Landis tells a story for that one because he has one. And then shishim, the question is shishim, like what you do when you can't have anybody taste it. Is shishim actually just a stand-in for flavor? Is shishim a non-ideal? Or in Rashi's version, we're going to see Rashi's like, you need shishim and then you can have someone taste it. Like you need both kind of. And Rashi's like, well, if you can't have someone taste it, then you rely on shishim, but you can't be like, oh, well, it's a 1 to 30 ratio, but I'm going to check out to see what the flavor status is. Like that doesn't work in Rashi's world. So, but okay, good. There's another one that I just kind of like, actually, which Tosafot is? Let me just take a look here. That I really wanted to. Oh yeah, it's the Ad Shemagia Lagid. Let me just ask it this way. I have one substance is cold, one substance is hot, and they interact. What's the rule?
Tata gavar.
Good, right? It's actually a debate between Rav and Shmuel and Avodah Zarah. It's actually one of the interesting cases where we poskin like Shmuel in ritual law against Rav. There are reasons why we poskin like Shmuel there. There's a breita that supports him. Yeah, he says tata gavar, which means what, Max?
The bottom wins out.
Exactly, right. If the bottom is hot, then it's a hot interaction. If the bottom is cold, it's kind of a cold interaction. You still need K'dei Klipa, maybe. So
The bottom meaning the thing that was falled onto.
exactly. Yeah. So, but to me, it actually makes the most sense. Rav, by the way, says the other. He says Ila Gavar, right? That the top thing. I think there is a way to read Rav as saying that both Ila Gavar and Tata Gavar are problematic, and he's just saying even Ila Gavar. But I have to look. I think there's a way to read it that way. But I mean, it makes to some extent the bottom thing is the thing that's cooking at the end of the day. So. The Rashba has an interesting take on this. He's like, this is a case where the bottom thing has a lot more than the top. He says, like, if I have, um, I don't know, like a huge slab of pork, and I drop it into a little bit. It doesn't have to be liquid. So let's say I drop it onto a small cold piece, or maybe yeah, I've got like some oil frying in a pan, and I drop not frying, some cold oil in a pan. I haven't lit the pan yet, right? I haven't heated the pan, and I drop a big slab of, steaming hot pork on it. I'm not going to say that the oil is Kadei Klipa. He's just like, no, like, if you're talking about those ratios, it's like, forget that, that's all bets are off. But that's the Rashba. But in general, we use it to
Because
Tagavar.
Tata Gavar is pointing to a normal case where there's something being cooked and something that is the falling,
Exactly. Yeah, falling into it. So, I mean, it's going to be a great, important principle, though, even for things like countertops, right? If I put, now generally we say a Kli to Kli interaction doesn't impart flavor anyway, but let's say I have, my countertop, it's got some, maybe even has some cold water on it. My countertop's cold, and I put my hot pan on the countertop directly, right? We say tata gavar, right? K'dei klipa maybe, right? But it doesn't, like let's say the countertop it has had some or maybe there's a spill. Let's even say there's a spill of like cold milk on the countertop, right? And I put my hot fleishik pan, like with the fleishik stuff in it, even well, that makes it even easier. But like on top of the counter, that's a tata gavar interaction. That's not a so at the end of the day. might change your view of countertops a little bit. But yeah.
Which would mean what?
That
The countertop.
So the countertop, so maybe both need Kidei Klipa at best. Maybe they don't need anything, so it's
There's no food.
there was some milk. I said there was some milk spilled on the counter.
Yeah, but the are you talking about the milk or the kalim?
I'm talking about the milk and the kalim, right? That you put a hot meat kli on top of some cold milk on your countertop, right?
Don't eat any of the milk.
Yeah, the milk is maybe Kidei Klipa needs, but we'll talk about that whether or not it actually needs it
There
or not.
only is a
probably
klipa.
shouldn't eat it.
What? Yeah, you probably shouldn't eat them. You're
I
not
was gonna say there only is a klipa in that case.
exactly. Yeah, it's but there you have not in
Block of cheese, maybe. I don't know.
yeah you what was that? Yeah, you
Block of cheese.
Yeah, it's cheese. Yeah, you haven't infected the meat pot, or you've at least minimally infected the meat pot. So at that point, so
Ways you have not minimally.
the meat pot, it's like it's hot,
Yeah.
but it's on a cold surface.
Right.
So the infection is very minimal, if anything.
Okay.
Do I have to care about the bottom of my pot? Sorry, now I'm
It's
getting
good. Well, we'll get these are all questions. We'll see. Whether or not that's an issue. But even if it is, it's a minimal issue. Let's put it that way. And a clean countertop is probably not an issue at all. So I'm not saying you should put stuff down on your clean countertop, but it's
Keep your foil down.
Pesach, by the way, is another issue because Pesach, we're talking about, whole questions about because there may not be B-tool and all that kind of stuff. But so yeah, but yeah, you may not need a meat section and a milk section of your countertop or anything like that. So the truth is, I would say. It depends on what kind of counters you have. Probably don't put hot things down directly on them anyway. But okay. Good. There was one other. I don't know how are we doing on time. I haven't not paying any attention. Oh, we're doing great. There was another
Does
concept.
mefa'apea count
Oh.
as a
Yes, good. Talk about
concept?
mefapea. What is?
Mefa'apea?
Mhm.
The blood fluttering, not the blood, the chalev fluttering up throughout
Yeah.
the animal.
Love dafka chalev. It's the movement. I would say it's the movement of an Issur within the heter, right?
The reason I say the chalev is because we compared it to brine or blood that would seem to not mefa'apea.
Good. Yeah, not everything will have the ability to do pipua, right, in the same way. And this is where it gets into like some of this, is like different substances act differently, right? Not everything infects the same way at the end of the day. But definitely, in fact, the truth is, what is the best kind of carrier of flavor that you have around? Fat. Fat carries flavor. It's and rotev also, right? Like liquids in general. Fat is a semi-liquid. And fat is very good at like carrying flavors, like across things. And so the fat itself will carry itself very well. And I don't know if chalev is worse than shuman in that sense in terms of being able to move through something, but maybe it is. So if you ask me to define what chalev actually is, I would. I know that suet is a thing, and I know like there are halachic rules for it being able to be peeled and all this stuff, but like I couldn't point to it for you because again, in my world, I don't have to remove the chalev from my meat; it's already removed. It's like I've lost that. In the same way, I don't salt my meat either because it comes salted and rinsed.
Should do I don't know, the Washington Heights group should do a field trip to
Isn't it Grow and Behold's in Pennsylvania or KOL's in Pennsylvania? KOL Foods is in Pennsylvania, right?
Yeah. I don't know where Grow and Behold is.
I think it might be in Maryland, actually. So
Anyway.
yeah, it'd be worth doing a field trip or just find someone to shlita and doing that. Have I told you my story? This is when we lived in Seattle. This is it was before Thanksgiving. And Rav Benzaken, who is the family is an old Seattle family. He does shchita among other things, and he offered that we bought like not so people in the community bought, I think it was 6 heritage turkeys. So Rachel and I bought one of them, and he went and did shlita, and people came and they did the kisui hadam, and they did the plucking and they did the salting and all that stuff. He like had them do it at this farm. We were out of town when it happened, so we bought the turkey, and what we did is we invited the Shabbos we ate the turkey. We invited everybody who was part of the preparation of our bird to come for Shabbos. But it was really cool that they got to do it. They got to, and so they had to describe how it was for us because I wanted to know about it. And it was a really nice thing that he did, where he just went to this farm and they'd sold the birds and he did all the stuff there. But most people in the Jewish world don't get to interact, unfortunately, with their meat that way. So not just the Jewish world, Lav Dafka is
Yeah, that's it.
yeah. But I can't even tell you I don't know how they kill non-kosher meat in this world. I probably don't want to, right? Is that the
No, it's the subject of multiple documentaries.
For non-kosher meat?
Non-kosher meat.
Yeah.
I mean, kosher meat has trouble too, but
yeah, I'd say kosher meat has its own issues, right? It's
relative. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Relatively bad.
Yeah. That's what led to the creation of places like Grow and Behold and KOL Foods and so forth. Even I think Empire supposedly does. I don't know. I'm not sure what their whole. They're also in Pennsylvania, actually. I think Empire. So everyone's in Pennsylvania. I don't know why.
Farms.
Yeah. There's farms everywhere though. That's I think it's farms and close location to New York. That's really what it comes down to. Or proximity to New York. Okay, good. There was another one that I saw that I wanted to. Where did I see it? Oh yeah. Let's talk about spreading flavor. We had mefafea. What else? What other concepts are there about flavor spreading?
Nior and kisui.
Yeah. What are those?
Stirring the pot and covering the pot.
Yeah. All right. This will get into like when something drops, when an Issur touches a heter, but there's other heterim in the pot, like how local is it? Does it stay locally? Does it spread to everything? In other words, in the flip side, do all the forces marshal against that drop, or is it just the local force kind of thing? And Nier Vikisui are definitely ways of spreading the flavor making it one. I even say making it a closed system. That so making it a system. What was
Sending in the National Guard.
Sure. So, yeah.
But you're ensuring that it doesn't become Hanan, right? You're trying to avoid Hanan on that piece that it fell on.
Exactly. And so yeah, this is
Is there a time associated with that? I know that
time is gonna be an interesting question for all of this. Like there does seem to be, we'll see hints of this show up in a few places of kind of timeline. Like do things get, maybe when they're still boiling, they don't infect or get infected, or that'd be interesting Tosafot on that also. Like it takes time for things to spread. And there might be a thing of like, well, if I get to take it out quickly, there might be. So we'll see that what the time factor is. In general, we don't end up like really putting much emphasis on the time factor, but the Gemara definitely does, and it's definitely there in the Rishonim. But I think some of this is like also just like reality of like how people react to things. So, this is, by the way, just like it's like when someone calls you, I'm sure this is like maybe something everyone just like has already thought about, but like people will call you and say, "I just did this." It's like 2 hours before Shabbos. Like, what do I do? And your first reaction is to try to like get first is like is to calm them down and to very quickly get a heter if you can, if it's possible, right? If it's like something is very simple and you're just like, let's get it beat, like let's get the words mutar out, right? Now you can't always say that, but if you can, let's get that pretty quickly. And then it's like say to someone, okay, let's see if we can make this just perfectly fine. I have a few questions I need to ask you like about the situation, kind of thing. So I did I gotta tell the story. And it had to do with somebody who was applying for a rabbinical job, and I was in like this community interview of this person, and I asked him like, somebody calls you 10 minutes before Shabbos and they, drop some milk into their chicken soup. How do you respond? And it was like in some ways a pretty straightforward case. And he's like, well, they clearly just need it. I just say it's mutar. And it's like, without asking anything else. And he's like, yeah. And I was like, oh, I don't know. So, and then he asked me after, he said, well, what would you do? I say, well, like I asked some questions. Can you tell the ratios? Okay, can't tell the ratios. All right. We don't usually do this in the Ashkenazi world, but the fundamental is it's about taste. Do we have a non-Jewish neighbor that we can ask to taste this? Like it, and it depends. Are 20 people coming for Shabbos and you're lying in the soup? Or is the soup an extra thing you threw in? And it's like you have plenty of food for Shabbos. Like those are all questions that would help navigate the situation. Is it desperate? Is it the kind of thing where it's just like, yeah, you know what? I really would have liked chicken soup, but my Shabbos is gonna be just fine if I only have the chicken and the rice and the broccoli that I made that I checked for bugs really carefully. I don't know. It's like um, and those are all factors that need to be taken into consideration for all these. Obviously, you don't want to waste food either, but like let's I never you never want to just jump to like a blanket heter on things unless it's like an obvious case, like which you do get obvious cases. Someone's like like this is a case I can guarantee you're going to get it. I've gotten it because people, when we get into harifut, we'll get into like what it's all about. And it's people have all these rumors. So many people, I've asked them several times, people say, I had an onion and I put it in a milchik Tupperware. Is it milchik now? The answer is no. End of story. Right? That's simple. End of story. But the other one I get all the time, like I cooked X in a milchik pot. Can I eat it with meat? And I'm like, okay, the chances are it depends on, are you Sephardi or Ashkenazi? Like the first question is, when did you last use the pot before this? Oh, 3 days ago. Yes. Answer is yes, you can eat it with meat. End of story. Right. We'll see that. Like, yeah, you're good. No questions. So um those are things that when did you last use X is going to be like one of your most common questions to people when they ask you stuff. Because the most common question you're going to get is I cooked something in the wrong something, right? And like when did you last use it before this? That's going to be huge. And not only when did you, but we'll see actually for Basar Chalav, what did you last use it? If it was within 24 hours, what were you doing in those 24 hours with it? If you were just boiling water in it for Basar Chalav, no problem. Uh, right? If you were cooking actual milk in it, that might be problematic. So, uh, but good. Sorry, I'm like doing all of this over head in one fell swoop here, but
Good orientation.
yeah, exactly. First class. This doesn't count.
I have to go at 3. I also need to tell you.
Okay, so maybe we'll end at 3. Let's see, I think those were all the ones that I had. There's one other thing that kind of got mentioned, right? About blood. You said mefafea, the other one's like right with dam is misarik sarik, right? That it's slippery. It doesn't really penetrate or we have to say this, right? Because otherwise you wouldn't ever be able to like use really you would never be able to solve or you would never be able to solve the blood problem, right? If the blood just like leaves the thing and then comes back all the time, then you're stuck. You're like an endless loop, and it's just a nice way of saying that meat's Issur. So, but clearly meat isn't us. Well, from a strict kashrut perspective, it's not Issur. You can come up with all reasons why today maybe it should be Issur, why all sorts of stuff like that. Okay, good. Do you think did we cover every concept here?
There was also when you were when it's on the spit and it's dripping down.
Yeah.
Is it different than, was there another word that's important, or is it really
No.
as opposed to fluttering up?
Yeah, it's part of the fluttering up thing too is that is whether you're in a tata gavar or a ila gavar situation, like situation. What's the top, what's the bottom? A lot of the stuff, by the way, right, I want to make sure this is because it's not so in the seventh parak of Pesachim. There's this whole thing, right? The Korban Pesach has to be tsalui. It cannot be mevushal, right? That's even though in Dirayim it's referred to as mevushal at one point, right, which is itself like an interesting textual question that we have to, we answer by saying mevushal sometimes means boiled, and sometimes it means just a general category of heating stuff to cook to make them more edible. But which is very, as far as like, it's a very sensible explanation. We do that all the time, right? We use the word cooked sometimes mean a particular type of cooking, and sometimes we say, well, baking and cooking are different categories. That's but the Korban Pesach, what happens is, right, you are roasting it in this oven. It's like on a spit, and sometimes the juices fall off and rebound back, and now what you have is the juices that are rebounding are cooking the Korban Pesach, and that's the issue that's going on there. And so there you have to be kolef, and you're fine. So
Like
that's
a real
probably
barbecue.
what was that?
Like in real barbecue, that's what you want. You want the stuff to fall, and that's why you cover it. And not
Yes.
everybody reaches that level, but you see these like barbecues in Georgia, and it's like, it's a very long period of time, so there's definitely splatter back.
Yeah, which is what you don't want for the Korban Pesach, because you want it to be just roasted, right? Interesting drasha there. You can write about why. What is that? What is it about the Korban Pesach that can only be, tsali and not mevushal? But it's very clear in Shemot that that's the case, right? It cannot be cooked. So cooked is, yeah. Maybe it's like worth talking about, right? Well, what is bishul? What counts as bishul? What is bishul as a technical term?
Some kind of cooking in
Liquid.
liquid. Yeah.
Liquid. Yeah, exactly. Liquid is the right. Sli is cooking by fire, but no liquid medium, right, going in there. Um, so yeah, and yeah, afia is kind of similar, right? There's no liquid, right? That's baking, right? Yeah, so but yeah, those are just important. Oh yeah, that was the other term. What is like sali? What is like roasting?
Salting.
Salting. Yeah, salting is like roasting. We'll actually see. Gina, maybe notice we didn't see this in the Tosafot. What has the similar effect as cooking?
Um, Pickling.
Yeah, kibush, right? Leaving in liquid for long periods of time, right? It depends if it's a salted liquid versus unsalted liquid and all that stuff. But like if I leave something in water for 24 hours, it's considered to be cooked, at least to some extent. Which is a real thing, right? That's one way people cook, is by just leaving in a marinade, for instance, for a long period of time, is a method of imparting flavor and things. So, oh, there was one other thing actually. This kind of maybe passed by very quickly. Ori, have I run you out of time? No, I have 4 minutes. This is good. I've almost run you out of time. Where did I see this? Um, the rec the very soft. Uh, it,
Oh yeah.
yeah, about the this is about the into kutach. It wasn't kutach. It was kamcha, right? Dropping meat into kamcha, and we said, well, that case was actually a cold case, and it's very soft. Soft things really, maybe things have different kind of ability to have flavor into them, and that's oh, the other one which we didn't do. Everyone, maybe just this would be a good place to end here. The Tosfot aval nitzlak kolef ve'ochel ad shemagia v'chule. It's the second Tosfot in the widest lines on Tzadi Vav Amud Bet. It was it says we stopped in the middle. We didn't do the whole Tosfot, but in the last line of that Tosfot, he says um, but he says the line starts Solim. It's in Parak Kitzad Solim, the seventh Parak of Pesachim. He says de chebol kach polto. As something absorbs, it exudes. Right. This is a very important principle. It'll come into Kalim, into the hechsher of Kalim. Right. The idea is the way that it absorbs flavor is the way we get rid of the flavor from things. And right, this is the reason that, pots that you boil water in, how do you kosher them? You boil water in them, right? Or you put them in boiling water, right? Things that you roast, that you use, kalim you use for roasting, how do you kosher them? You light them on fire, right? It's libun. That's where we get that principle, is as it absorbs. Same thing, right? Is you may know that the Chaye Adam's idea with cold glassware for Pesach. He says, you soak it in water for 3 days. That's where it comes from, right? Why? Because it absorbs. It actually comes from a thing in the Gemara about barrels, right? Things that hold liquid for long periods of time. What do? You fill them with liquid for a long period of time to kosher them. And so that's going to be a major concept too, that we're going to have kibble kach polto. So, okay. That's I think there's a good stopping point. This is all like an intro to a lot of concepts in Issur Heter. So hopefully that'll be helpful, and have a good Shabbos.
Thank you. Can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's separate.
Yeah, is this a recorded question or a non-recorded question?
Probably a non-recorded question. Bye, everyone.